Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good, what day is it? Good Thursday. Welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 till 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you've got any questions, ask them in the comments in the live feed below. And if you need any more advice, join our official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. So during this live session, we'll be running a poll. So please do engage with the poll. And at the end of the session, around about 10 to 9, I'll be revealing all the results of the poll. Okay, so introductions. My name is Tommie. I am the founder of a company called Bambuu Brush. We have sustainable products with the likes of bamboo toothbrushes, reusable water bottles, coffee mugs, all of the top 10 ocean polluters, which fund our social impact projects here in the UK with community cleanups, educational workshops, but also in the developing world in Ghana to combat and utilise plastic waste. I am also the environmental project director of Humanitas charity. Humanitas charity are a specifically humanitarian-based humanitarian aid charity, looking at family support, education and medical, but we've come on as to look at a more of a holistic approach to humanitarian aid, and essentially the environment encompasses all areas of humanitarian aid. So that's also my role alongside the founder of Bambuu Brush. So today we're going to be talking all around net zero, and it's quite a buzzword at the moment, especially with COP26, the United Nations Climate Conference, the next couple of weeks. So today we're going to be looking at setting targets around net zero, what we can do. We're also going to be looking at why we need to set targets, where we're at the moment in regards to global warming and the climate crisis. What happens if we don't hit the targets that we've set out, which is pretty scary, and then looking at the positive aspects of around what we can do as individuals, as businesses, as business leaders, as nations, as I genuinely believe we all have a role to play in this global issue. So before we get into this, I think it's good for me to point out the Sme Climate Hub, which I would advise everyone to head over to smeclimatehub.org. And on there, it's essentially a platform in which educates and also inspires people to make a commitment towards going towards net zero. Net zero is essentially reducing our going completely net zero, carbon neutrality by 2050, and halving our emissions by 2030. So if you head over to the SME Climate Hub, it has toolkits, resources, workshops all around what we can do. And essentially it's moving on from this conversation that we're having now. So it's a nice little plug, but go and head over, go sign up and make that commitment. All right, so today we're going to go through, I did just briefly go through this, but we're going to go through the benefits of setting goals, where we are currently, what happens if we don't hit the targets, and then what we can do. So before that, I think it's best if we just break down a couple of the key words and the buzzwords within the conversation, because I think sometimes sustainability, climate change, the global climate crisis becomes quite overwhelming for everyday people. And I hold our hands up, myself and my business partner Rebecca. We're not environmental scientists. We're just two people who have got a passion around making a positive impact. And I think if we can grab hold of that notion that we're all in this together, we can all make simple changes, and we don't have to do things 100%. But if we're working towards these targets, then there is a lot of impact that we can make. So with that being said, let me break down some of these buzzwords so people understand essentially where everything comes from, and then what we need to do to go forward. So obviously there is a huge issue around the global climate crisis, global warming, and that was highlighted in 2009, essentially the Copenhagen Agreement, which was where at COP15, countries all around the world understood that we're not going to be able to change global warming overnight. So there needed to be a longer term strategy, and for countries, big organizations, big businesses to work together to hit targets to be able to reduce the impacts of global warming. Fast forward to 2015 at COP21, you've probably heard of the term the Paris Agreement, but essentially what the Paris Agreement was is going back from the Copenhagen Agreement is that they knew that moving on, we're not going to be able to change global warming overnight, but we need to work together and have a longer term strategy in how we can hit these targets. So there was the Paris Agreement essentially was the 196 countries around the world signed up that we would actively move towards not going above 2 degrees Celsius of the pre-industrial global temperature around the world, and preferably we would not go above 1.5 degrees of that pre-industrial global temperature. So that was 196 countries around the world signed up to this to put a longer term plan in place so we can reduce the effects of global warming. And then from the Paris Agreement, you then have the term net zero. And the net zero essentially means, in its simplest form, we will be at zero from the amount of carbon that we produce as an individual, as a business, as an organization, and we will reduce, we will absorb the amount of carbon that we produce. So the overall consumption is zero. And there are two ways to do that. The big focus, and what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later in on this call, is how we can reduce our carbon emissions, which is a massive aspect. The other side of that is the removal, and that goes a bit far beyond small to medium-sized businesses. This is on a national level, when you've got incredible technologies that can absorb greenhouse gases and carbon from the atmosphere, pump it back into the ground. So that is carbon removal. But let's keep it simple and focus on the areas in which we can tackle by reducing the amount of carbon and greenhouse gases that we utilize as individuals, as businesses, as business leaders. Okay, so that's kind of the framework of why. Looking at where we are at the moment, considering the target is to not go above the 1.5 degrees threshold. At the moment, we are still accelerating in this direction, and we really need to be going this way, downwards, at the same trajectory to really hit these net zero goals. But we are currently at 1.2 degrees Celsius above industrial global temperatures, which is quite scary. Okay, considering last year, 2020, was with the COVID pandemic, and there was a massive reduction in travel and transport and overall activity. 2020 was still the third warmest year on record, which is quite a scary impact if you look at the overall aspect of what we're trying to achieve. And when we're looking at the global warming, the reason this is really dangerous is the fact that the global temperature doesn't even out evenly around the world, and it focuses its areas on the Arctic, the polar caps. And then when you have that, this is where you have the whole conversation around ice sheets melting, and then you get the sea levels rising, which is quite a scary thought, because then you only have to look at the news over the last year and look at the crazy extreme weather conditions that we've been having because of this. This is simply a disruption in global weather systems. And then you have the imbalance of ecosystems. You have the species extinction, which all imbalances nature on a global level. Looking at the extreme weather conditions, you've got crazy floods which are happening in the UK, we had mass floods last night. And it's quite a scary thought to think these are just going to get more and more extreme as we move above that 1.2 degrees. You then look at that global temperature impacts on our ocean's health. And the more, I think the ocean absorbs around about 25% of the global temperature a year. When you've got more, when the oceans increase in its temperature, it becomes more acidic. The ocean also provides us with around 50 to 70% of oxygen that we breathe in. So then that will over time impact us as humans. You then have to look at the population distribution of the world. And I believe last year in 2020, specifically around climate and extreme weather conditions, around 50 million people around the world were displaced from their homes. So it's a big issue that we need to address, and these, as we move forward and we're not hitting these targets, these extreme weather conditions are going to fly through the roof. You're going to have extreme flooding, you're going to have extreme heat, you're going to have widespread disease, you're then going to have mass migration of people linked in with widespread disease. Is something we really need to address now, and we need to stop making promises and we need to take action. So looking at that and looking at the hope and the positive around this conversation, what can we do? And what can we do as one, individuals, two, small businesses, and three, as a nation? And I really do believe that we all hold a power to make an impact. What I do day to day is all specifically around plastics. And I genuinely believe that plastics are an incredible way to get people engaged in the conversation around sustainability. Plastics are tangible. We can see them. Carbon is quite hard because it's the greenhouse gas conversation is quite hard to actually pick up, but it's something that you can grab hold of, and it's something that you can use as employees, as employers, and to get people engaged in the conversation around sustainability. So let's look at things that we can do. Firstly, I'm going to plug, go and sign up to the Sme Climate Hub. It's got all the tools, everything that you need to break down about what we can do. But the first thing I would do is, it will take a little bit of time, but do an audit of your business or in your role in your department. Do an audit around the consumption in which you use in different areas like energy, look at your waste, look at your water, look at your supply chain, which then you can break down to energy, waste, water, look at the transport. One aspect which I would also add to that, they're usually the main ones that you focus on, is action and education. And I think this is where you can really galvanize your employees around the conversation around sustainability. So do an audit, because then you're going to be able to set yourself benchmarks and set yourself targets in where you can be at in this time next year, this time in 3 years, this time in 5 years, this time at 2030, in where we want to be to half emissions towards the long-term target of net zero by 2050. Okay, so once we've got that audit, you can then look at changing the way that you and your employees and your business travel. Okay, just look at last year. How many people didn't travel into work? The positive implications of that are massive. Look at whether there's half the days in the week people can work from home. Okay, again, reducing the amount of travel, reducing the amount of transport, overall positive impact towards your emissions as a business or as a department, as an individual. Okay, so that's one aspect. You then look at your supply chain, and this is where you can pick up, for us, it's the conversation around plastic, but you can adjust your packaging and your shipping and change into more sustainable materials. On our last Ask the Expert, we had a good question about this, and for us, we want to get people in the mindset of reusing products and reusing packaging and not throw away products. So whether you can have a system in which something is reusable, so you invest in a higher quality product, and then you can use that 10, 20, 30, however many months down the line, much better than buying single use or low usage and then discarding it. You can also look at minimizing and managing your waste better. So have a look at where you are in the business, how much paper you use, how much energy you use. Talking about energy, is there an opportunity to go towards renewable energy? Can you switch to LED lights? These are all really simple, tangible actions that you can do as small, medium-sized businesses and employees. There's so much that you can grab hold of to get people engaged. And then on that engagement level, I spoke about it earlier, but education and inspiration, and two key points on which I believe that we can really grab hold of this. And can you inspire your employees by doing workshops around sustainability? Can you inspire your employees around taking action and getting the community involved in cleanups or something positive that's going to benefit the environment, but also the well-being of your employees? So hopefully I've broken down a few things on how we can actually set targets and the reasons why, and the benefits as well as of engaging your employees around this conversation of moving towards net zero. For me, I just genuinely believe it's time for action. There's been enough promises. We now need to get people involved and taking action towards hitting our net zero targets and reducing that by 50% by 2030. Okay, enough of me. We've had some fantastic questions come in on all social media, so I'm going to go through them. Caroline on Instagram DM: what should we do as consumers with non-recyclable plastics? Like, how are we supposed to dispose of them in the most environmentally friendly way if we already know it can't be recycled? Wow, this isn't planned. This is like Blue Peter. This is an Ecobrick, okay? We are very much advocates for Ecobricks. Ecobricks is essentially, in there we've got crisp packets, yogurt. This is one of our customers brought this into us, but yogurt tops, anything unrecycled. So everyone go on to ecobricks.org online, and essentially you can fill drinks bottles up with this, fill drinks bottles up and then fill them with unrecyclable plastic, shove them in. I sometimes use tongs or chopsticks to push it in. Once it gets to a certain weight, I believe it's 750 grams, you can then go and donate this or drop this off at an Ecobrick donation point, which are all over the country. The majority of them are in churches. I know that in our town there's about 3 or 4 in the space of a mile, so they're absolutely everywhere. And then what happens is these will then be donated to create anything from children's playgrounds to chairs. There's loads that these are reused. So yes, it's unrecyclable, but in an extension of its life in something positive. So Ecobricks, great question. Amy on Twitter: I want to go fully electric with my delivery fleet, but it takes time and isn't always cost effective. I can't afford to replace my 6 trucks in one go. What shall I do? Amy, this is where you have those targets and you set those goals. And okay, yes, fully agreed. As a business owner, it is hard to go fully sustainable and fully carbon positive straight away. Realistically, we've all got to be sustainable as a business and keep that money being generated. But this is where you have to set goals and have goals that in 1 year time you're going to change 1 of your 6 trucks. In 3 years times we're going to change 3 of our 6 trucks. By 5 years times we're going to go fully electric. Over that time you'll be able to justify the investment. And nowadays it is that investment. A lot of sustainability is that initial investment, that initial cost, but over time you're going to save money. But it's really hard to get your mindset to change around that. But Amy, simply just set goals on where you would like to be. Thank you for that question. Vicky on Instagram: the government recently announced funding for people to get heat pumps to replace their boilers. Do you know why heat pumps are better for the environment? Vicky, if I'm completely honest, I don't know the ins and the outs and the technical aspect of that. There is some incredible. I would. There's a couple of social media accounts that I would really recommend people to go follow around this question to really give yourselves the best understanding around the climate issue. There is the IPCC. So it's just IPCC. Go and head over to there. That's run by the United Nations, and they break everything down around climate change. They're the ones who do the special reporting on how we're working towards net zero. They're excellent. And I just think go and look at social media. And there's also the UK government have released a document that explains the reasons why. There is also Mitsubishi VE, which is the electric aspect of Mitsubishi. They have a section of business called EcoDan, which is essentially the heat pump. So I would head over there to clue yourself up about the benefits of the heat pumps. But thank you for that, Vicky. I wish I could answer in more depth. Me on Facebook. One of the top tips for going sustainable is for a business to change. However, a lot of them are going bust at the moment. Yes, tricky one. So if you're a smaller greener provider, then you end up being moved back to one of the big six. How can we ensure that we're getting energy in this situation? I would highlight Octopus Energy. I don't believe that they've gone down, but yeah, there is a number of them which are moving towards. You've got the likes of Eon, who are, I think they're 90% renewable now, and it's a real tricky one around the smaller provider, because I know in the last couple of weeks that quite a few have gone down, and I guess there's so many levels to that, and it's a problem generically. I would also look at, there's a lot of grants around, especially, well, in my area, around solar and being able to self-sustaining and having solar installation in your property and in your businesses. So I would look into that, because if you'll be able to generate your own, okay, again, that investment is much more at the start, but over time you're going to be able to reap those rewards and save on money. Okay, and then Angela on Instagram DM. Thank you for that, Mia. Angela on DM. I heard, and that another benefit of having solar panels is that you can actually make money off them and selling the excess electricity you produce. How would an individual or small business go about selling these? Angela, I from my recollection, we don't have that. We have a really old building, and our building is listed, so we can't actually get solar panels on ours. But what I believe is that it's just an app, and then from that app you can divvy out. It's all done within the apps, and then that can be pushed on and passed of the excess energy that you create. That can be then divvied out where it needs to be. I don't know the specific app's name. It's obviously you'll have to sign up online. There'll be quite a few different platforms in which you'll be able to do it. But going back to the last question, now that there is these grants and there's these opportunities for us to all produce our own energy through solar, I know that this is going to be a huge industry to get into. But thank you for that, Angela. Okay, Abby on Twitter DM. Advice on how to communicate on topics of climate change and sustainability without scaring people or making it feel like an impossible task. Yeah, this is an ongoing topic of conversation that we have within our business and as a charity. It is really hard, but I think because you want people to understand the implications of not acting, and that is you need that scare factor, but at the same time, you don't want to turn them off. From myself and Rebecca, our wow moment was we traveled the world for a long while, and we saw the output of plastic pollution and how it was personally impacting people on a humanitarian level. So that comes with it, like from within, and that's never going to go. So it's really hard. It's really hard to replicate that in the UK. I think the conversation that you need to have around whether you're talking to people or your employees or groups in general is solution-based conversations. Okay, so I think nowadays people have been bombarded with the fact of, yes, we know that there is a problem. We know that there is a problem. But if you can turn that conversation to highlighting and raising that awareness to solutions, this is what you can do. This is how you can engage people. This is how people can take action. I think that's where the best level of communication is, to engage people. And I go back 20 minutes and I was talking about action and education. And education and action go hand in hand. And I believe it's such an important role within business to increase the level of education of your employees around this subject, but then from that, take that theory and turn it into action and actually go and purposefully create a positive impact, whether that's in the community, whether that's alongside another organization. There's so much that you can do, and then people are engaged in that conversation and they're doing. Okay, so thank you for that, Abby. Hope that answered the question. The last question, Zach on Instagram DM. I've noticed that my council only recycles certain items, yet some of the stuff it doesn't recycle, I know are recyclable. I don't want to put this stuff in the normal rubbish. As a business, what could we do? What could we do? What could we be doing with it? Okay, there is an incredible organisation that we work with, a company called Sound Project, and essentially what they do is they can take unrecyclable waste. This is in bulk, so it's not at the level of this small. This is in tons. Whether you aggregate that waste, but then they can turn these. They can turn all of that unrecycled plastic, gets washed, it gets put through a certain processes, shredded, and then they make boards. So the boards are essentially, let's say they're about that thick, and they can be then used for a full range of outputs. They've built stages at Glastonbury Festival, and they've built runways at London Fashion Week. There is loads that can be done. So Sound Project, head over to them on social media or online. If you've got any questions, send them over to me, because this is a space that we're moving into, and it's quite an exciting space, because then you can utilize that plastic. And I think there's a power in plastic, and there's a power in unrecyclables, and we can use that as a raw material. Okay, so thank you for all your questions. We did at the start of the show, we did a poll, and the poll results are in. We asked you, does your business have carbon neutral or net zero goals? We said 10% of people answered yes, 60% of people answered no, and 30% of people answered we're working on it. Okay, on regards to that, again, let's get everyone over to the SME Climate Hub. Okay, so SME Climate Hub online, and sign your business up, and sign your department up, sign your role, sign yourself up as an individual, but it's done as a business. We want to be able to give people the tools and the resources to be able to work towards halving our emissions by 2030 and going completely net zero by 2050. So head over to the SME Climate Hub, sign your business up, and then from that you can list all of the things that we've just spoke about. Engaging people, doing an audit on your business, understanding where your waste, understanding your energy, understanding where you can reduce on different aspects of your transport and your supply chain, and then get your employees, colleagues, business leaders in your business to grab hold of that action and then move it forwards from your business. So yeah, head over to the Sme Climate Hub and just make a commitment for the planet. I think there's also a benefit around for business. Nowadays, as customers, people want to know that what they're buying into is sustainable, ethical, and this is only going to grow. So long term, this is going to be beneficial for businesses as well. So let's get in early. Okay, thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to get in contact, please get in contact with me or anything about anything I've spoken about. Feel free to drop us a DM on @Bambuu Brush, @Bambuu Brush on all social medias. We've also got www.bamboobrush.com for all of our products, and it has highlights on our charity and everything that we're working on with our social impact projects. And if you want to get in contact with myself, please email me. It's Tommie@BambooBrush, BAMBUU brush.com, and I will be more than happy to answer. So coming up on Ask the Expert on Monday is Aaron Patrick, an accountant and QuickBooks Pro advisor. Tune in to get some advice on accounting and the latest features and tools that are making bookkeeping easier. A reminder that if you need any more advice, please join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. There is accountants and business experts on hand 24/7. And finally, again, I will talk about this, more resources and info. Check out the Sme Climate Hub. There are tools to help you calculate your carbon footprint, resources to start meeting your target, and make sure you make a commitment to go net zero by 2050 or sooner. So that is smeclimatehub.org/QuickBooks and sign up. So I really hope that you've enjoyed my Ask the Expert session this morning, and hopefully giving you a bit more knowledge around net zero. Have the best day, and let's all work towards going net zero by 2050.